Get ready to get to know Aaron Glenn, the new head coach of the New York Jets, a job that many believe no one would want. It sure sounds like Aaron Glenn wanted it. Now, of course, he'll say it now, but I believe it. That's the thing. Credibility and authenticity are the key, Chris Simms, when it comes to a job like that. Do you believe what a guy is saying? I believe what Aaron Glenn is saying, regardless of whether or not it's true.
I did.
I believe it.
I do, too.
I believe it.
Well, I do, too. It's just funny because you're coming off of Ben Johnson, who you said you didn't believe all that he wanted to go to Chicago yesterday, but this one you're going to take it. So I don't know where you stand on these issues.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Either way, I do believe it. I think players always are a little bit of like nostalgic as far as going back to places where their career started. And he played football there. And, yeah, the Jets weren't great through his period of time there, but he was a real damn good player. And they had a few years here and there. But usually there's a place or a special place in your heart as a player for that organization that drafted you and you were a part of it. And I think he feels that. And then he probably feels like, hey, I know the Jets culture a little bit. I know the Jets fans. And, damn, they deserve better. It's a passionate group, right? They love their team. They stick with them thick and thin, whatever. So I can see that totally. And then, of course, how could he not love, like we talked about yesterday, the talent on the defense? As a defensive head coach where you're going to be judged by like, hey, was he a good hire? Did he do the right things? Well, he's got the pieces here on this defense to be extremely dangerous in the NFL and do some creative things with some ultra-talented guys. And I think from that standpoint, yeah, I can get behind it that he wanted that job for sure.
And this is a point, I made it yesterday when we did a brief little PFTPM reacting to the Glenn hire. Jason Garrett said this during one of the Football Night in America podcasts this year. The challenge for the coach and the GM when you have an owner who likes to be involved is to manage up, is to find a way to get that person who is meddling, inclined to meddle, tempted to rely upon Madden ratings when it's time to figure out who to draft, who to sign, who to whatever. Get that person on board with what you're trying to do. Manage up. Basically, navigate that difficult personality. Get them to think they're making the decision that you're trying to get them to make. That's the challenge. Don't just let them meddle. Engineer and direct their inclination to meddle. And I think Aaron Glenn could maybe pull it off, but that's going to be the biggest challenge because Woody Johnson is documented as a meddler. So you got to let him feel like he's meddling, but you got to get him to meddle in the way that you want him to. Easier said than done, but that may be something else Aaron Glenn and whoever they hire as GM can pull off.
Yeah, well, I do believe Aaron Glenn has the people skills to do that type of stuff, for sure. Right, and you know, I second what you heard Devin McCourty talking about in the opening behind the highlights of the Aaron Glenn hiring and all of that.
Or Jason. Or Jason.
Well, you think was it Jason? You think? I'm not even sure. I thought it was Devin, but either way, I thought it was Devin. I feel like I could tell the difference between their voice. But Devin, either way, or the McCourty twins, let's just say, yeah, they hit the right things. Of course, the attitude. What he knows New York. He understands New Yorkers a little bit. He's going to understand the New York media. There's a little flair and pizzazz to him that certainly can handle that stuff. And, yeah, that's going to come in handy with the owner. The biggest thing with the owner, and if you kind of, hear the stories from the past regime, meddling wasn't that bad until things started to get bad. And then all of a sudden it's a little bit like, he got his hands in there and he wanted to get involved. So the biggest thing for Aaron Glenn is just get off to a good start, win some football games, and then the meddling will be a little bit more like you said. It's like, what do you think? You guys know what you're doing. What do you think? Instead of like, hey, I'm going to tell you what to do and all that. Winning cures all, I guess, is what I'm saying. And, you got to have that magic touch to deal with the owner here, yes.
By the way, let me just pause for a second and say that the show is PFT Live. If you've wandered onto your Peacock dial or Sirius XM and landed on 85, Sky Sports NFL Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. He's Chris Simms. I'm Mike Florio. A good friend of mine the other day said to me, why do they let Devin work on ESPN also? And I said, That's his twin brother. He's got a twin.
I
didn't know he had a twin.
He gets it all the time wherever we go. Jason. Right? I always had to deal with like, hey, Phil, you're Phil's son. Phil. Right? He's got it way worse than I ever did. Certainly. I mean, we haven't gotten anywhere where anybody has called him Devin. Everybody has called him Jason off the bat, and he's gotten to the point where I understand where he doesn't even fight it sometimes. People just call him Jason, and he just looks up and waves his hand and says hi.
Well, I mean, he really needs to have some fun with it. When they call him Jason, he should say, hey, blank you, and they'll think it was Jason, not Devin, who said it. I can tell them apart. I can't tell their voices apart, but we've been around Devin enough to know when I see one of them on TV, I know whether it's Devin or Jason. I know instantly,
right.
But the voices sound
they're tough.
Too similar to me. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.